Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Shorba, and today we're going to talk about an interesting development that's taken place over this offseason, but mainly within this last day, as Budda Baker of the Arizona Cardinals, star safety for their team, is officially requesting a trade from the Arizona Cardinals. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into this. What I want to do is just break this down, who he is as a player, kind of what you're getting, the way the defense may look. Does it make sense from a salary cap standpoint? Does it make sense to fill the needs? Is this overkill? And really evaluate that, even what we got to give up in a trade. And that could vary a bit more. You know, we never really know for sure what a team wants, but we can take a pretty good stab at it. So, first thing with Budda Baker. One of the best safeties in the NFL right now, truly a game changer for the Arizona Cardinals and arguably the leader on their defense. He's a player who's paid, I believe, 7th right now in contracts at the safety position, so he's pretty high pay. If you're taking him on, you're looking at probably about 13 to 14 million a year right now. Some of that cap could be taken by the Arizona Cardinals. Could also be a new contract, for all you know. So there's some details there, but that's where he sits right now. So he wants a new contract with Arizona if he's going to stay there. If he does not get that, which I would imagine he would not, he wants to be traded. And it seems as if he's not getting it because of the things he said today, which this is being recorded the night before this goes out. So this would be Friday. And just in general, the situation with the Cardinals. You know, this is a player who wants to win. And unfortunately for the Cardinals organization, they're probably not even going to have Kyler Murray back by the beginning of the season. So they're not looking good. And you could argue that out of every franchise except maybe the Bucs right now, they probably have one of the most dire situations in the league. So, you know, it's bad for the Cardinals, but that's going to put him on the trading block, I believe. And if he goes to Jacksonville, it offers this team a star player in the secondary, of which the secondary right now, I think you could argue Tyson Campbell's a star. I don't think Andre Cisco's necessarily at that level yet. I think he can get there. I think he's a really good safety. Rayshawn Jenkins, kind of the same thing there. I don't think he's necessarily a star at the position. And Darius Williams is a pretty good lockdown corner, but he's not a star. And so Budda Baker provides that in the secondary. He provides a veteran player who's been around the league, I think, about 6 years at this point. He's very much a player who has experience. He also has some experience in the slot. So look at his different seasons. You'll see this past year, didn't really play there as much. 148 snaps. Played a lot in the box and also played mostly at free safety. So kind of moving around the formation. He's more of a chess piece. But we go back to 2018, you can see he spent almost the entire year in the slot. And you look at other guys that the Jaguars have. And you look at the snaps they've taken, where they play him. You look at 2022 for Rayshawn Jenkins. You see 231 snaps in the slot. We got Andre Cisco, I believe it's around 100 something. So you get that here. And even Andrew Wingard, you could throw in there. There's a lot of different players that have moved into the slot. I guess him not as much, but that's something I believe they're considering at this point. So if you brought in Baker, you're getting all these different players who are capable of playing there. And you have 3 guys at safety this next year you think can start. There's 2 starting spots. So the way I see this working, if Jacksonville goes after them, I still think it's a good move because 2 of those safeties are going to be sitting back in those positions, but you can have one of them play in the slot. Get the ones who are the best at that, have them play there more, and move people around. Move it around however you need it. You might like one guy against a specific player on a specific week. We really don't know. Depends on who you're going up against. This provides team versatility, provides just a fantastic player for the back end. And a guy, hopefully, if he went to Jacksonville, would stick around. And so I think that helps a lot. It really answers the slot corner need Because if you need to, you can have him play full-time as a slot. I don't think that's the best use of him, but I would put him there a good amount, for sure. But it also allows you to not have to go at this position in the first round. Because right now I think there's an argument that they have to do this in the first round. They have to go get a cornerback. But if you don't go and draft, or sorry, if you go and get Budda Baker on this team, you've got your slot answers. You know, ultimately, like, you have people there. You don't have to fill that need because the amount Herndon's on the field really isn't anything massive with how many players you can rotate around. So it's still nice to upgrade, but you don't have to. You get it if it's the best player available. But what you do need in this scenario, which is fine, is still someone who can play on the outside. Because if Williams goes down or Campbell goes down, there is no backup. There's no player on this roster that can play out there that I really trust to do that. And so, may not make Brian Branch the best fit if they went and got Budda Baker anymore, but you could look at cornerbacks who are mostly outside guys. You could consider that in the third or fourth round. It kind of changes how you address that need, or how you are at least required to if you want to have a good amount of depth. Pushes it down the board, opens you up to getting a better player with your first selection. You know, maybe then you're able to go after a Dalton Kincaid if you feel like he's the best player on the board. Maybe Miles Murphy falls that spot. You can also still look at corner. That's completely fine. If they like Deonte Banks at the first pick, I think that'd be a fantastic selection for the team. You can still move your safeties around. You can do different stuff with them. Get them on the field a good amount. So there's definitely things they can do. And so it definitely helps with the draft situation. And like I kind of mentioned before, Baker's a player that wants to win. He's someone who's going to fit in really well with the culture here if he comes to this team. And I was looking around, like, just some of the things he said, and I found something interesting. And hey, a lot of people tweet about this game, right? It was an amazing night, that night at the bank. But you want to know how he feels about the Jaguars? Here you go. He likes the team. Thinks they're fighters, loves the way they play. And so I think you consider, would Budda Baker be willing to play for this organization? Yes, 100%. I wouldn't have a doubt about that based off of the way he talks about them. And would the Jaguars want him? Well, that's the question. And I think we've seen that they're willing to go after star firepower even when it's not a perfect fit. Big example this offseason, well, the guy never ended up really being available, was Darius Slay, because there was bidding for him. At one point, the Ravens thought they had him. They won it. I mean, they gave him the best contract. He was going to go there, and the Eagles changed their mind, decided to keep Darius Slay around. And I think this is a similar situation where you have a star player that maybe he doesn't have the most perfect fit for what you want on your team, but at the same time, he's such a talented player that you want to bring him into your roster. You're going to be versatile still. You're going to find a way to get him on the field because you have to. And ultimately, Budda Baker is going to be your best safety, so it's probably going to be either Rayshon or Andre, you know, moving to another position or playing in a different spot, you know, when all three are on the field. So things to consider there. I think it makes sense. I think from what we saw the Jaguars do, you could definitely consider them a contender. Now we'll have to hear. We'll have to see what they do because we really don't know at this point. Might be something that gets figured out weeks from now. Might be something that gets figured out in a few days. But I think the trade value, if I had to project it, which it can always be different, it could always be much lower. Because, for example, DeAndre Hopkins, from the exact same team, a player that people thought, oh, he should get a second rounder. Dude might not even go for a fifth. So consider that, and I think Baker's a bit different of a situation. As a player, there's less injury concern for one, and I just think that at his position, like, he's more of a sure thing at this point, not by a ton. But you can still say that maybe Baker doesn't go for as much. maybe you get them on the cheap. And I think if you sent them, say, a third or fourth rounder, I would negotiate it in there to where the Arizona Cardinals take on some of that cap. And so you look at how this impacts it. We've got this set up on over the cap, how it changes the cap space. When you add Budda Baker in, this is without Arizona taking on any money, of which I think they would be able to take on some. The amount of cap space you have available, you're essentially going to be 100 or 200,000 short of or over what you need to be at, because you need about 3.1 million for your draft class, but you also don't necessarily need all of that because you're probably shooting a third rounder over, and whatever player you have in place of that guy is probably going to be slightly cheaper. So you're really close on cap space, inheriting the rest of this contract. You also got about 14 million in 2024, and you got a contract you got to give him after that point. So for Budda Baker, not a crazy cap hit. It's a lot, right? But nothing crazy. This is a very talented safety. It may require a new contract, but I also think that you're going to get Arizona to take on some of this. And the reason why I say that is because, for one, we see teams do this. We see them take on some of the cap to help facilitate a trade. But for Arizona, I hate to say it for them, but this next season's lost. I would be shocked if they were sniffing the playoffs next year. They don't even have their quarterback to start the year. They're in a bad situation. They're talking about trading away players. They're in a rebuild. Management's gone. Cliff Kingsbury's gone. They're resetting what they're doing. So this is the kind of year where they would be able to take on those kinds of hits, kind of tank the cap a little bit, and just get rid of any expensive contracts. You know, if they got paid a little bit, that's fine, but they're getting that cap out of the way for the future. It makes sense to do this kind of move with them. I think you could definitely get to work out. So, I mean, Jacksonville right now, you know, remove this trade from here for a moment. They've got cap space. Effectively, at this point, they have about 11.7 or 8 million that they can spend, because you've got the rest of that going towards your draft class, but that's a good amount of money. And it really has made me wonder whether they're going to make a big trade or not. I think that could happen at some point, or I think it could just go towards getting a Justin Houston and DeJuan Smoot back. That's possible too. But for Jacksonville, I mean, they've restructured money. They pushed stuff down the road. They put themselves in a situation where they're among the teams with the most cap now. And they still have a great roster. But they got some issues. I think it's more depth related. And I think there's places you can upgrade, but slot corner is probably the one place that you want a new starter. And if you bring in Budda Baker, you're going to get a player who can play there, but he's going to take over snaps as well as safety, push those guys into more of the slot role, make your team more versatile. And I think they'd be just fine. So, to answer a big question here, do I think the Jaguars should trade for Budda Baker? I think it would be just fine. I would have nothing against that because, for one, you are getting a star player. You're also getting a player who's not washed. He's not past his prime. The guy's 27 years old. Came into the NFL at a young age. I mean, he's literally the same age as Christian Kirk. Do we think Christian Kirk's past his prime? No, we don't. He's in his prime right now. You get Budda Baker for good years in his career. The best years that he's going to have as a football player in a Super Bowl window for this team, of which we hope exists throughout the entirety of Lawrence's career. But you add in a great player on a defense that struggled all over. People blame things on the secondary. They blamed it on the pass rush. This helps you complete the secondary. You're going to have a fantastic group of players out there. You turn that into an elite position for your team, and all you need is depth at cornerback. That's a great situation for a team. So I think they should. I'd be willing to give up a third, but at the same time, if they don't, that's fine. I mean, it's a better cap situation for the team. You know, they can use that money the next year. I guess my mentality, I usually like to kind of save things for later. I don't like to reap rewards now and then reap consequences at a later date. But at the same time, this is a good move. if they want to go after it. And sometimes these moves are fine, and I think this is one that is a little more realistic than saying we want DeAndre Hopkins here now, or we want, whatever other star player it is, because there's a lot of guys who get dealt all the time. So I definitely think they should make this move. I think it would be great for Jacksonville. I think it adds to the culture a bit too. You get guys who want to win on this team, and you end up improving your roster. You go into the draft, you can focus on the best player available at 24. It doesn't knock you out of consideration for a cornerback either. I mean, imagine if they got Deonte Banks still at that point. Had another corner, had Budda Baker in the secondary. I mean, this team would be ridiculous. You can still make that move. So it makes sense for me. But let me know how you feel about it. Let me know, maybe you think this is just something that's a little over the moon, not a great idea. Maybe you think this is a really good move for the team. Anything you guys know that I don't, would love to hear it. Hopefully we hear more soon, and just know what's going on. Because another thing in this, just to throw it out there quick, if this does not happen before the draft, that's where things get confusing, because the second, third, and fourth round pick for next year are already tied up in the Calvin Ridley trade because they don't know which one is being sent over. So because of that, it's pretty much going to be impossible to use draft capital from that year. It might need to be 2025, and that causes a problem. So hopefully this is something that gets sorted out in the next 2 weeks before the NFL draft. So just throw that out there. But I appreciate you guys watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Definitely make sure to hit me up on anything Jags related. Love talking about it. Love some more stuff out before the draft. But appreciate it. Talk to you later. Go Jags.